Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IoTSF conference. And this session, the rise of collaboration in the IoT ecosystem. My name is Paul Lockley. I'm the VP of Sales for EMEA. And with me is Rob Dobson, VP of Technology.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be on this session with you today.
Today, we're going to talk to you about, in essence, the journey from nothing to something. The considerations in there from a partnership point of view and how partnerships make the difference between success and failure, and then end with a few examples of where we've collaborated and delivered value to customers. So let's take some time to just look at the evolution of the IoT market and understand why now is a perfect time to be in doing things and leveraging IoT. So, if we look back at the 50s when SCADA was invented, people started thinking about that utopia of getting more control in the factory, through to the 60s where, they started to actually visualize some of that value in the factory application. And we started to see radio tracking start to formulate as a usage where some of the research areas were doing some tracking of wolves. And as we got into the 70s, that transformed and people were starting to look at RFID to track cattle, a first practical application of cattle migrations and looking at where they were. But that didn't really gain any momentum until the 80s, where it started to get its first commercial projects. So you can see that it's a slow burn. When people started to visualize connecting things for the first time to get value, it was a long time before we got the practical value from it. Through to the 90s, where M2M really started to step up with the evolution of GSM and the ability to very easily and simply connect assets wherever they are, whatever they're doing. Through to the 2000s, where IoT was coined as a phrase, and people started to think about, wouldn't it be glorious if we could connect up anything and get value from it? But again, from thought to delivery, there's still some time. Into the 2010s, where people then started to connect sensors and devices to create the flow and drive value from effectively the information, which is the lifeblood of any connected environment. The first smart city was deployed in Dublin. And the IoT in general was coming of age. There were a myriad of projects and potential use cases in healthcare, automotive, industrial, retail. We're at the end of what we call the hockey stick, where we're starting to get true value from those things. Into the 20s and beyond, where can we get to with this fantastic concept? What's coming up? Things like V2X, extended edge, artificial intelligence playing a role in how we adopt and adapt, machine learning, eventually evolving to the Internet of Everything, where everything is connected and value is derived from every waking moment of our lives. So what does that mean in practical terms? I think there's lots of analysis that goes on, and people are constantly sharing their wisdom and where the market's going. But the thing that we do see, the commonality in there, is that between now and sort of middle of this decade up to the start of 2030, there's going to be significant growth again. Tens of billions of dollars of additional money being spent, significant market sector growth. What we will see in there are different players start to form. You'll see the enterprise players start to come in and have a much more sure footing in IoT, and there'll be lots of acquisition, I suspect, as they try and buy their way to market share, which is always what happens. And also the other thing that we will see is, as this boom happens, you will see a rise of the dark side, the hackers and the ransomware, because there'll be a bigger prize for them. So the right security posture and the right security partners are really what will make the difference in protecting your assets. So the IoT security ecosystem, it's who does what and where. Having the right partnerships in place, using the right tools is what will make a difference to success and failure, to compromise and no compromise. But what we see is that it's going to get more and more difficult. And we see that because, as the range of players extends, the landscape gets much more difficult to understand and traverse. Let's just take a look at how many players are in the cyberspace today and how complex it could get. Where do you start? So for anybody that's finding it difficult to see, as I do, we are down here. But for us, our partnerships and our network of partners is vital to being able to deliver true solutions. And I say that because in IoT, success comes from joining hands with people that can deliver value alongside you and climbing customer mountain together to deliver successful projects. So why are ecosystem partners important? And I think it doesn't matter what industry you're in and what you're doing and what your organization provides. In there, you'll have assets that you want to connect. And there'll be technologies that make a difference to your playing field. And it doesn't matter what decisions you make for your cloud service, your IoT platform. What makes a difference is joining the dots to make sure that the edge to enterprise is automated and secure. And that's what we strive to deliver at Device Authority. So I'm going to hand over to Rob, and Rob's going to talk to you about the investment we've made in broadening our ecosystem partnership and what some of that value looks like.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That was an interesting start. So I just wanted to start off by looking at some of the ecosystem partners we engage with. And this is a snapshot really of those vendors. And as Paul sort of showed you in the last few slides, it's a very, very complicated picture when you start to talk about enterprise integration and the vendors that operate in that cyberspace. But these are some of the things we are doing. So there's a very interesting set of partners we are working with in the Secure by Design approach, which is all about how do we enable security from the outset on devices that they go into, OEM type products and things like that. So making it easy for customers to build in security from the outset and having the right security operations and control in place for those devices so that you can connect them securely to the enterprise. And then, of course, I will be talking about some of these vendors in the next section, I think, in the next few slides. So we'll get into some of that. And then the enterprise IoT space is really, it's very interesting because there's lots of vendors in this space that are doing IoT applications, services to manage things like enrollment, data aggregation. You can look at the Microsoft stack and you can see exactly, what they're offering for IoT is quite a wide range of services. Same with AWS, PTC, all those guys. But equally, there's lots of other vendors in that space, like the detect and respond vendors. If you look at some of the visibility platform providers like Medigate, for example, they offer up solutions to detect and respond what's on the network from a device point of view and be able to profile those types of devices. Then you got the CA vendors like DigiCert, or you got the HSM vendors like Entrust and so forth. And then you got the Venafi vendors that operate in the enterprise space. Equally, all those vendors have a very, very strong footprint in that space, but it's joining the dots between how do I get my devices secure, and how do I plug into the enterprise IoT vendors and build security from the outset? And then there's the device OEM piece, which is all about, well, how do I enable it on devices like Dell gateways or chipsets on for AMD and so forth? Is how we actually enable those from an OEM point of view to make it easy to plug into the enterprise securely. That's one of the fundamental things we try to address in our solution. And then I guess technology partners and SIs, I wouldn't discount these guys because actually through a lot of our projects are driven via our partners and SIs in this space because essentially, we are an ingredient as a device authority, as is many of the other vendors in this space, and the SIs tend to pull in the various pieces to pull together an IT solution for an end solution. And so that's why it's very important that we have those established relationships with those SI vendors, to technology partners like the Wipros, like the BSIs, and even to some of the newer sort of relationships we have actually, like the Jitsuans, that are actually addressing things in the US side of things for SBOM. I don't know if you guys have seen that came out, but the executive order came out in May this year to improve the supply chain security for anything in critical utilities in the US. So I would encourage you to go and read about that. That's an interesting space. In fact, we're engaged in that space right now. So that's a sort of little bit about the sort of ecosystem partners. I wanted to just talk about how those map through the IT lifecycle now, and I'm pretty sure some of you guys have seen this slide before. It's been around a few years now, but it's still very, very true, and it sort of paints a picture of how devices will be onboarded and how they're managed and plugged in from an enterprise point of view. And you can see here there's a bunch of vendors that we work with. There's more, right? This is just an example set. So, for example, Titan, they do selling modules, trusted objects, EPS Global, intrinsic ID. But that's all about that step one. How do we secure production? How do we install that trust in the device from the outset? And then you've got that established trust in your OEM, ODM product. How do you distribute that to your reseller? It gets transferred to the owner, and then ultimately it has to get onboarded. And there's some standardized approaches for this. And obviously, you guys might be aware of the Azure Sphere, which follows the 7 principles of Microsoft to provide that end-to-end onboarding, device attestation, and authentication of those devices to the Sphere services and so forth. And then there's a new thing is fairly recently, FIDO FDO, FIDO Device Onboarding Service, which actually we are enabling in our product Keyscaler in this very, very shortly, actually. And this basically, FIDO's a standardized approach for doing these steps 1 and 2 to onboard your device securely. And us from device authority point of view, when we can do all these steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, but the real value here that we see with our customers and our engagements is around the orange blobs, if you can see on the screen. It's all about how do you plug into the IT applications? How do you then provision and manage security posture and security credentials for those devices, step 3? And then step 4 is all about how do you plug into the enterprise? And it's all those steps there which customers see the value, right? So if I want to renew the certificates for my edge devices, if I want to automate the provision into my IoT application, if I want to provide a way to get crypto keys on the edge device so I can do end-to-end crypto from the device into the application, secure updates, whatever it may be, those have to be managed and those devices have to be managed because you can't touch every single device, right? We're not talking enterprise-led laptops, computers. We're actually talking about headless devices. So hence why it's really important to have that management capability. And then plugging into the HSMs, the CA vendors, the Venifys, Entrust, all those guys, really, really important because lots of customers have those established components in their infrastructure. Hence why you need to connect into that to manage those interactions. And then, as I mentioned before, it's the BSIs, the Siricons, Wipros, Tech Mahindras, Infosys. It's those guys that are pulling together the whole complete solution end to end for an end client and to meet their use case. So yeah, that's something we've been sort of pushing for some time now. So let's look at some of the example ecosystem partners. So one of those is a recent one called Titan. We've got this program called Keyscaler Ready, which is a program which is aimed at enabling Keyscaler on a bunch of products and solutions. So it could be a chipset vendor, could be an MCU, could be a module provider. In this instance, Titan offer up leading communication modules that go into vehicles, and actually they have lots of inroads and deployments in the tier one vehicle manufacturers, and they cover things like cellular, V2X, GNSS, Wi-Fi, equal, all that kind of stuff. So what we're doing here is enabling Keyscaler on those modules to provide the sort of key fundamental security operations to allow you to connect your IoT device into things like the Azure Stack, AWS, ThingWorks, whatever it may be. So that's something to watch out for. We announced our relationship with them, I think, last month. Actually, no, earlier this month. And then Trusted Objects. What we do with Trusted Objects, they are a company which, again, is a Keyscaler ready provider. So we've done some work with them to enable their what they call TO Protect, which is a software root of trust. So it's to secure any device with software root of trust. Is a new concept. So for any device that doesn't have a secure element or TPM and has a limited budget, and you don't have the BOM size available to support a TPM as well, and also for legacy MCU devices, there's a way to use a root of trust in software to establish that trust anchor at the edge and be able to connect to your cloud infrastructure securely to provide the right credentials and so forth. And this provides security mechanisms and cryptographic operations, so mutual authentication, integrity protection, secure boot, so forth. Also provides various protocol secure implementation, TLS, LoRaWAN, so forth, and also secure storage. So for storing certificates, unique ID, sensitive data, whatever it may be. And you can provision and manage security services for doing certificate updates, firmware updates, and so forth. The point here is end to end. Trust the device and being able to automate that device into chosen application and provide the right credentials and keys through that process. All at the point of being able to have something plug and play. I can just buy this MCU with Trusted Objects library, stick it on, and off we go, and connect it to Keyscaler and connect to your cloud infrastructure. So that's one other thing we're doing. Also, the other thing in this space is really interesting is the Azure Stack. And this is just one snapshot of one of the security suites that we have. And there's many others, right, that AWS have their own suite and so forth. And we've done some integration to that. But the point I'm trying to show here is that there's a lot of services which customers use from these various cloud vendors, whether that's automating the enrollment to something like the device provisioning service to the Azure guys, or it's how do I get certificates and enroll certificates to the IoT hub, or is it something where I want to be able to enroll turnkey Sphere devices and provide certificates to those Sphere devices at scale without having to touch each device. All the way through here to things like CAs and BYOK. So the Azure CA services for IoT is really, really important with Key Vault. So we did some work with a use case, which I'll touch on in a bit actually, for a client around that Key Vault integration. And even integrating to the network tools, so things like the Sentinel Enterprise Event Management Integration or SIEM. So being able to, if there's events happening on your real estate devices, you want to be notified about that through your standardized SIEM type platforms. So we can feed events into those types of solutions to give that visibility to those CISOs and IT administrators and so forth. And I guess this takes us on to the case studies. So let's just quickly touch on a few of these. I'm going to touch on this one, which is PKI management for connected car. So in this example here, the customer wanted to be able to connect their telematics control units inside the vehicle to their chosen vehicle cloud platform. And actually, the end-to-end flow here is that we've got our Keyscaler Identity Access Management platform and the ability to trust the device which is the TCU. We have our own library that sits on there. And when we have these various flows to be able to onboard the device to the Keyscaler platform, provision the device with a certificate and identity, and also enroll the device to the vehicle cloud platform and assign an identity to that. So end to end, you don't have to touch the vehicle TCU or the IT application. and also that enables then the device to stand up a connection, mutual TLS, between the vehicle TCU and the cloud platform. And then through that process, you can then manage the end-to-end um, life cycle of those credentials. And that becomes really, really important when you talk about vehicle transfer and you transfer of ownership from one owner to another owner, especially when you talk about high value vehicles. And the last point on this one is really around the key vault sort of integration. So we actually saved the customer, I think it was at 264% ROI on this one by implementing a key vault connector so they could bring their own keys, stick it in their key vault, and not have to use dedicated HSMs or on online HSM service, which can be quite costly. So that's really quite an interesting use case for a connected car program. I'm actually going to pass to Paul, who's going to talk about industrial IoT solution. Paul, over to
Yeah.
you for a bit.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, so with this customer, what we were able to do is use our Keyscaler platform and our Edge solution, DDKG, and build for them a service that allowed them to import keys from an OEM partner. And we worked in conjunction with our partner, Entrust, to deliver a solution that allowed them to import these keys, manage them in secure repositories, proliferate them out securely to their assembly line terminals, and have a policy framework aligned to it that meant that that key material was stored only for a given period of time, and then we would track its usage, and at the end of that period, delete any remaining key material. So the whole process was secure, and then we would provide an audit trail back through that process to show which key material was used where and which was deleted. So there's so it's fully traceable. The upshot of this is we built a framework for the customer that met their requirements today, but simplified the way they could build out services to their front side customers. And the gain for them was that they've got a framework that allows them to rapidly deploy, so reducing the mean time to service availability and increasing their ability to drive new customer acquisition through service availability. So wrapped together, we were able to provide the services they need today and a framework to stand up new services simply and easily, with our sort of quite modular approach to supporting new concepts and new solutions. So this very, very valuable to them, and it's transformed the way they can consult and engage with their customer base. Back to you, Rob.
Oh, okay. I think this is the last one actually. And this is just an example of connected car secure over-the-air updates that we've done, and it's actually using. It's actually. No, no worries. I've got control. Don't worry. So it's actually using the Keyscaler, our product, combined with one of our partners. So, for example, Venify, to provide that code signing service, to be able to provision application code to Keyscaler. It could be any firmware code. We would then push that out to a code signer service like Venify, get that signed, provide through policy, then push that signed bit of data up to cloud storage area. And then the next time the vehicle comes to check in to our Keyscaler platform, basically what happens is it checks in, it gets instructions, hey, you need to do an update, and here's where you need to go off, get your package, download the package, and then check the signature of that package against a key which is provided to the device or the vehicle, so that you can be sure that package is trustworthy, its integrity is good, and so forth. So end to end, that means that you can deliver any type of software package and lock out that malicious intent to modify, provide rogue software to get onto the vehicles and so forth. And equally, through that partner ecosystem, allowing us to sign the software, if you're a proven sign-in service like Venify, deliver it to a storage area like a cloud blob storage area through the Azure stack, as an example. It could be AWS, and then end-to-end provision that package to those vehicles and so forth. So that's another example in that space for vehicles, but equally that can apply for various other applications as well. It's not just vehicle, can be a whole bunch of IoT devices. I think we're running out of time, to be honest. I think that's the end actually. But I would encourage you to contact us if you want to talk about use cases, or you want to talk to us about any of the ecosystem, or you want to become a partner with us. That reach out to myself and Paul, and even if you want to book a demo, please go on our website, and we'd love to talk to you about it. Other than that, let's open the floor for questions. Paul, you've got anything to add?
No, I think that's it. Just reach out. We're happy to chat, regardless of what the outcome is. So I think we'll go to questions now.
Brilliant.